Herman Cain this week found himself in an awkward virtual no-win situation, just as polls showed that he's winning. I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined by my colleagues Stephen Green and Bill Whittle from Monument, Colorado and Los Angeles, California, respectively. The latest polls put Herman Cain in a dead heat for the GOP lead, with Mitt Romney in Iowa and with Rick Perry in the Texas governor's home state. Wow. So it's no surprise that the attacks would come. Sunday night, Politico.com, a Washington-based news and opinion service, posted an exclusive story alleging Cain sexually harassed two unnamed former employees in the 1990s, and that his former employer paid a five-figure cash settlement to make the accusations go away. Here's Cain's direct response to that.
I have never sexually harassed anyone, and absolutely, these are false accusations.
Now, Steve Green, let's start with the story itself. If you're the editor, assuming they have such things, at Politico.com, do you greenlight this thing as written? And if not, what did it need to be street ready, so to speak?
Yeah, Glenn Reynolds, our friend at Instaplanet, I think he really nailed this one. He asked, and I wrote it down here, would Jonathan Martin, Maggie Haberman, Anna Palmer, and Kenneth Vogel have put their names on a similar piece with no-name sources aimed at Barack Obama, and would Politico have run it? And we know what the answer is. They let Obama get away with just a guy in my neighborhood. They never demanded his grades from college or asked him just what the hell he did at Harvard Law Review, where he edited but never once published. They never even brought it up. Those were questions for right-wing wackos like us. We were the only ones talking about it. But a hint, a whiff of anything on Herman Cain, and Politico goes to press with this fact-free story from anonymous sources. This thing stinks. It's not news.
Well, Bill Whittle, let's be fair. If this were Barack Obama rather than Herman Cain facing these accusations, wouldn't you be rubbing your hands in schadenfreudic glee over this?
I got plenty to rub my hands in schadenfreude and glee with without a made-up bull story about something that probably didn't happen, for which there's no evidence. The things that I rub my hand in glee about watching Obama fail at are out in the real world, and they're too numerous certainly to mention here. I don't need to invent some story with no evidence and run it. And then, look, Scotty, here's how it works. You make the accusation, right? Somebody writes something somewhere. Then the press reports somebody has written something about this, and then it's news. And now Herman Cain has got this on his record, basically, on his public record. The doubt is planted in people's minds, and it'll never go away. And this is what happens when you have people like this. They used to call these people muckrakers back in the day. We saw the same thing with Rick Perry when he was the front runner, and we'll see the same thing again, too. And let me just close by saying this. You're not going to see this on Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is going to go untouched until he is the nominee, because they want Mitt Romney to be the nominee. Once Romney becomes the nominee, they'll do the same thing to Romney that they did to McCain, who also enjoyed that press immunity during the primaries.
Now, come on now, Bill. We all know that the definition of news is, in fact, something that journalists write about. Steve, the initial shock was that this guy was a Baptist minister, married for decades, and he might have misbehaved or acted inappropriately toward women and then covered it up. But the chorus of Herman Cain character witnesses has been swift and loud and clear in support of his integrity. So at this point, what's left of this story?
What's left? We still don't know if there was anything there to begin with. And, it's part of a pattern, and Bill hinted at this a little bit. Before Cain, they went after Perry when he was riding high, and they sunk his poll numbers to where he's losing in his home state, as you mentioned. Before Perry, they went after Michelle Bachmann when she was riding high, although I think she's a weak enough candidate, she probably would have sunk her poll numbers all on her own. The press is going after every Republican. Yeah, Bill's right, except for Mitt Romney. But this goes to another thing. We remember with John Edwards. Here was a guy whose whole campaign, the personal part of his campaign, was based on being this loving husband who stood by his wife when she had cancer, when it turned out he was cheating on his wife while she had cancer. This is a bad guy, and the press covered up for him. They're going after Herman Cain for the same kind of thing, even though it's probably not true, that they gave Edwards a pass on.
Stephen Green hosts Hair of the Dog, the Weekend Blogs, and Coast to Coast Tea Party here on PJTV.com. Well, Bill, an anonymous allegation of sexual harassment is the Kobayashi Maru of dirty political tactics. How can a candidate extricate himself from it?
You can think outside the box and reprogram the simulation so that you will win, Scott. Listen, this is exactly right. You simply do not accept the terms, do not accept the premises, do not allow them to even start the conversation. Do not get out there and deny it and say, oh, I didn't do it. First thing you start out with is you start out very calmly by saying, please present the evidence that you have that this happened. Don't get out there and defend yourself, because if you're defending yourself, you look guilty. Say, I'd like to see the evidence that you have with which to make this allegation. That's the first thing you do. You do not let them set the terms of the game. Let me just tell this to the Republican candidates out there. You think if you're nice to these people, they're going to be nice to you. They'll never be nice to you. You think if you invite these guys to the Reagan Library from MSNBC to moderate your debates, that'll show how swell we are and how reasonable and all this. No. They're out to destroy us, and they do it any way they can, and they have no morals. You have to be prepared to fight back. And the way you fight back is you do not get into that ring in the first place.
If Andrew Breitbart had a good twin, he would be Bill Whittle. He's co-founder of DeclarationEntertainment.com. Don't miss him in Afterburner here on PJTV.com, as well as Klavan, Whittle, and you right here. Well, unnamed sources and non-specific allegations force a candidate to talk about the issue. But the facts of the case didn't seem to concern the alleged journalists at Politico. The implication was enough to send them out big game hunting. They wanted to take someone down, in particular a successful capitalist Republican and a professing Christian who poses an unexpected threat to the establishment in both parties. You know, not so long ago, journalists used to make fun of bloggers as irresponsible amateurs with no editors and no professional ethics. Now those of us in the new media have a full-time job fact-checking the so-called professionals and protecting the Fourth Estate from itself. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.